distinguished Chief Guest of the day, Mr. Salman Qureshi, guests of honor, the distinguished panel of judges, principals, vice principals, my dear colleagues, and dear students. Assalamu alaikum and a very good afternoon to you all. We are going to witness the finals of the annual Inter-House Debating Competition 2017-2018. We welcome all of you for this competition. Before we start, we would like to have both the teams on stage. First of all, let me invite the opposing team, Kalani House, to take their seat. Next, the proposing team, the debaters of Wallaway House, to take their seats. Thank you. Now let me introduce the distinguished panel of judges for today's competition, starting with Mr. Salman Qureshi, the English language instructor of British Council. Next we have Tom Raymer, English language instructor of British Council. Next we have Samer Sulaiman. He too is the language instructor of British Council. Let us give them a warm applause. And here we have Mrs. Fazliha Kader to assist us with timing. As we all are familiar with the debating rules, I would like to right away start the debate as we have run out of time. And before that, I would like to introduce the debaters of both teams. First, starting with the proposing team. Wallaway House, the leader, Naveed Riyadh. Then the second speaker, Amira Rizni. Then we have the third speaker, Zamil Zamik. And the fourth speaker, Firaz Qasim. Thank you. Now let me introduce the opposing team, the debaters of Kalani House, starting with the leader, Sarah Kamil. The second speaker, Dunura Pereira. The third speaker, Kevin Pires. And the fourth speaker, Inshira Imtiaz. Without further ado, let me invite the leader, and first of all, let me tell the topic for today's debate. That is, single-sex schools are effective than co-ed schools. Single-sex schools are effective than co-ed schools. So, without further ado, let me invite the leader of the proposing team, Wallaway House, Naveed Riyadh.
a co-ed school, single-sex education can take place. But in a single-sex school, co-education can't take place. Because in a single-sex school itself, you have either all boys or all girls. It is concentration that dominates diversion. Chief guest, Mr. Salman Qureshi, honorable panel of judges, teachers, and my dear friends, on behalf of my team and I, Assalamu alaikum, and a very good morning to all of you. In a co-ed school, it is impossible to say that there is gender equality. I mean, men and women are equal, but equality doesn't give identicality. They are equal but not identical to each other. You can't tell a girl to do a boy's job. At the same time, a boy is not superior to a girl. Gender identity is who you are in your soul. Because have you all ever seen a male restroom combined with a female restroom? No. Why? Because of the actual identity of who they are. And here's what's interesting. In a co-ed school itself, you have two separate restrooms for both the genders. When kids of the same sex are together, boys with boys and girls with girls, they give themselves more mutual support, a sense of community and greater confidence. Thus, what happens? They participate more and are more engaged. According to a study in 2012, 45% of boys from single-sex schools entered college compared with only 39% of the boys from co-ed schools. For the girls, it was 44% of girls from all-girls school and 40% of girls from co-ed schools. So, single-sex schools are effective in guiding these students. According to a BBC, girls at single-sex state schools in England get better GCSE results than those in mixed schools. In mixed schools, it's 55% of pupils who pass the GCSEs. But if you take the single-sex schools, the proportion is 75%. So my dear worthy opponents, this proves immensely how effective single-sex schools are. Let's take, for example, our school. We are a single-sex school, right? Let me put up the question. Haven't we got national winners? Haven't we got world prize winners from the Edexcel exams? Why? Because our school as a single-sex school is successful in producing these recognized winners. Even the former British Prime Minister, Winston Churchill, British Ambassador to the United Nations, Sir Jeremy Greenstock, they studied in Harrow all-boys school. The former United States Secretary of State, Condoleezza Rice, studied in all-girls school. Look at the positions they held. So this again proves how effective single-sex schools are. At the same time, students in single-sex schools are often more willing to take risks. Why? Because they do not have to fear falling on their face in front of the other gender. As a result, the classrooms in these schools are often dynamic, free, ideas. Schools set a base in the student's life. They are the foundation. So if you see most of the Israel-based companies, such as Avgol, Bram Plastic Industries, located in the US, they have given job opportunities for the US citizens. And these Israelis come from their country, where majority are single-sex schools. Hence, concentration as a result of single-sex school is far more effective than distraction caused by co-ed school. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, it's the turn of the leader of Kalani House. Let me invite Sarah Kamil of Kalani House to present their point of view.
We will not have equality in society until and unless we have equality in education. Honorable Chief Guest, respected panel of judges, teachers, and my dear friends, on behalf of my team and I, let me extend the warmest greetings to all of you. Assalamu alaikum and good afternoon. A school is a place or establishment designed to educate children of varying ages and backgrounds. For a school to be effective, it has to provide all of its pupils with good quality education, as well as various co-curricular and extracurricular activities. My team and I believe that the best way to achieve this is through co-education. Life is not separate. In the real world, you will mix and mingle with males, females, and everyone in between, and it is the duty of your school to prepare you to live in this world. How are children and youth expected to live, work, and survive in this environment if they are not prepared for this in their school, which is meant to educate them and teach them about life? co-educational schools not only teach students about equality and fairness, but also how to respect, work with, and treat people of the opposite gender. Where else will we learn these values if not at school? The first co-ed school was opened in the mid-1800s. Before then, all schools were single-sex schools and 99% of them were for males. But today, this is not the case. According to the Guardian newspaper, the Australian government has predicted that by the year 2035, there will be no more single-sex schools left in the country. While in the United States of America, the number of single-sex schools has fallen by almost 50% in just the last decade. Why is there such a dramatic change in schooling systems around the world? If single-sex education is actually better, we could have left it that way. But we didn't, because it is universally realized that co-education is much more effective for both society and the students. Why do you think our teachers prefer to teach mixed classes? It is not only the fact that it saves time and resources, but also that both male and female students are more disciplined, more respectful, and more inclined to learn with the presence of the opposite sex in the class, except for a few exceptionally mischievous children. One of the arguments against mixed schools is that boys' and girls' brains work and absorb information differently, and so teaching them separately is more effective. However, there is almost no research to prove that this is true. Even in a single-sex school, not all the students will be able to work at the same pace or with the same methods. A good school is one that teaches everyone effectively despite the diversity of students present. Therefore, separating students due to so-called differences in their brains is almost the same as saying that students should be separated by race, religion, or ethnicity, which is something I am sure my opponents don't agree with. Co-ed schools are the initiative of a group of hard-working, thought-provoking, and persevering intellectuals. They are not parks where students come to have fun and focus on everything except schoolwork. Yes, single-sex schools may have a few mere advantages, but the fact remains that the best and most effective method of schooling is co-education. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, let me call upon Amira Rizni of Wallaway House to present their argument.
We all know the fact that whatever we learn with joy, we never forget. But how do you expect children to learn with joy in a co-educated school where gender stereotypes exist? Take, for example, Ottara Del Gunwardana, who is currently the CEO of Odell, studied in a single-sex school. Had she studied in a co-ed school, boys would have discouraged her from reaching this position by indirectly or directly telling her that this job is a boy's job and not a girl's job. Most importantly, males and females are different in many ways. Girls have a sense of hearing that is 7 times more acute than boys, which is why they prefer a more calmer environment while boys prefer loud and noisy environments. Boys also tend to learn better while under stress, and girls can't. They are also more visual learners while girls are auditory learners. So with all these differences between each gender, how do you expect girls and boys to study under the same roof and extract equal benefits from a school? But in a single-sex school, all these differences are acknowledged because of the availability of different school environments and different teaching methods. In a co-ed school, there can be a disproportion in the population of girls and boys. And in these schools, mostly boys tend to dominate leadership roles, which creates biasness in a co-ed school. Okay, let's bring in our motherland, Sri Lanka, where the top best schools are all single-sex schools. For example, Trinity, St. Peter's, St. Bridget's Convent, Royal College, and so on. Also, the corporate world, island-wide, is dominated by products of these single-sex schools. The success of these businessmen itself shows the effectiveness of studying in a single-sex school. What we are doing right now Pretending that gender does not matter is not working. We are losing ground. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, it's the turn of Kelani House. Let me invite the second speaker of Kelani House, Dunura Pereira.
Education is a process of facilitated learning, or the acquisition of knowledge, skills, values, beliefs, and habits. And my opponents are here to say that this all can be done in single-sex school. Well, I feel extremely sorry for my opponents who have got the wrong end of the stick. You have forgotten the fact that in co-ed schools, there tends to be more competitiveness in education. When boys and girls go to the same school, they learn how to work as equals. Furthermore, work together in the classroom provides boys and girls the opportunity to learn from each other intellectually as well as socially. In a co-ed school, a boy learns how to work under leadership of a girl, and the girl learns the other way around. Now let's take a scenario. In a single-sex school, there are 30 students who have passed their O-level examinations, in which 28 students have chosen the commerce stream, and just 2 students have chosen the science stream. How expensive is it for the school to facilitate 4 teachers, a classroom, laboratory facilities, so on and so forth, just for 2 students? However, this is not the case in a co-ed school. When it is a co-ed school, definitely you will find the opposite gender who will join these two students and make a healthy classroom. Now tell me, my dear friends, why do teachers in our school come and tell the boys, you know the girls are way ahead of you, and tell the girls, you know the boys are way ahead of you? You think that they're saying that for the sake of mocking us? It is done to create competition amongst both genders, which leads the students to work hard, get more marks, and at the end, make both genders succeed. But in a single-sex school, if a teacher compares a boy to another boy, he will say, oh, who cares, sir? Just leave it, he's just a nerd. Moving on, in a co-ed school, there is a strong bond between both genders. Each one protects the other schoolmate in any given situation. Take aside the fact that she's from the same class or not, just because they study in the same school, you will definitely intervene for her protection. But single-sex school boys will always think, oh, it's none of my business to intervene with. So my dear wonderful audience, if you're here to become a better person for this society, the best choice, the wise choice is that your parents have made you to study in a co-ed school and not in a single-sex school. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, let me call upon the third speaker of Walawe House, Zamil Zamik.
Respect is a really important aspect in our life. We students actually respect the opposite gender in a single-sex school, unlike in a co-ed school where there's so much of harassment and bullying taking place. I mean, whenever a girl walks by and we boys sit together, don't we yell at others, guys, she's coming, and then like, act smart, you know? I mean, show some respect. Don't we? So that's why this is a way of showing respect. But in a co-ed school, there is a friction between boys and girls. So this will cause disciplinary issues and will result in bad behavior. An important point to highlight, a school where boys and girls study together is a co-ed school. No, it is not, my dear opponents. This word co-ed is just for namesake. I mean, from restrooms to classrooms, all of these are not together. I mean, there are 2 restrooms for both the genders. In a classroom, the boys on one side, the girls on the other. And sports, especially sports, do you see a boy defender who passes the ball all the way to a brilliantly creative girl to head it in? Do you? No. And now why is that? Because they have different abilities, different strengths. So competing in sports like this is just not logical. And the same applies for other sports like rugby, volleyball, basketball, and both the genders, where they do not compete face to face. And also just imagine you're in a class with boys and girls. Would you openly ask any question that pops up to your mind? Any question? No. And I guarantee that. I mean, even to get permission to go to the washroom, I have to think so many times whether to ask now, later, Oh, never! So just imagine, how embarrassing would that be? So opponents, please don't put us in that kind of a situation. And opponents also mentioned that there is equality in society. When there is equality in education, how is that possible? I mean, when boys make a mistake in the classroom, they are hammered. And when girls make a mistake, voices are raised. So how is there equality? My dear opponents, please reconsider your statement. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, it's the turn of the third speaker of the opposing team, that is Kelani House. Let me invite Kevin Pires.
First and foremost, let me begin by clarifying that our school is not a single-sex school. Does this look like a single-sex school to you? Here, this is a copy of our school's registration. This is the same registration for both the boys and for the girls. Nowhere in this document do I see it mentioned that this school is for a particular gender. So, my extremely intelligent opponents, this school is for boys and for girls. This is the definition of co-ed school. Let us recall the most recent football tournament conducted in our school. First game, Wallaway House versus the Kelani House. Wallaway won. However, in the finals, Kelani overcame Wallaway. What was our secret to success? The Kelani girls arrived, cheered for us, pumped us up, gave us that little bit of extra energy to walk home champion. Our secret, by the way, our secret wasn't so special. It was just that we boys didn't want to lose in front of the girls. Let us take another example. A group of boys doing a particular project. They are from the same gender and tend to have the same ideas. Don't you think a mixed team is better? Where both genders can help each other in what they are specialized in. Not only showing co-ed schools are more effective, but also showing co-ed schools increase team working ability. My opponents may mention students may not focus academically and get distracted in co-ed schools. However, this point is absolutely absurd. The reason I say this is because students in co-ed schools are most likely to be open and can socialize with everybody, not minding their gender. This shows that they are generally comfortable around everybody. However, in a single-sex school, the students will be clueless on how to communicate and respect to the other gender, allowing them to be curious, allowing them to get distracted through other sources, such as social media. Co-ed schools allow children to respect, socialize, communicate, teamwork, and most importantly, have a fun learning environment. Why are we trying to stop this? You tell me. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, I would like to call upon the fourth speaker of the proposing team, that is Wallaway House, Firaz Qasim.
We are having an interesting evening, are we not? With some very interesting things being said from my opposing side today. An astonishing set of speeches, just mixing cherry-picked facts, figures and quotes that misrepresent single-sex schools. You said that the real world is mixed and that co-ed prepares you for this world. My dear opponents, we stay in school only for 6 hours. And the rest of the time, we spend in a mixed environment. We come from a single-sex school and I have no problem in mixing in that environment. So how can you say that children who come from single-sex schools don't know how to get ready for the mixed environment out there? My opponents also stated that in co-ed, there is more competition. My dear opponents, this will arise simply due to the need to impress the other gender. There is no sincerity. What goes in from this year comes out from the other. Moving swiftly on, you said that a mixed team is better. You are a mixed team, right? And you come from a single-sex school. And you are effective. Today we have a boys wing and a girls wing. Why do they say there's a boys wing? Why do they say there's a girls wing if this is not a co-ed school? On a factual point, you said that single-sex schools, the students don't know how to communicate with the other gender. How am I communicating with my mother? How am I communicating with my sister? I'm from a single-sex school, right? Don't I know how to communicate with them? Well, I'm pretty sure I do. You also said that co-ed motivates students to learn harder due to the presence of the other gender. Not bad, but I can do better. You see, my dear opponents, when the other gender is there will be something known as distraction. You know distraction, right? Well, you will want to impress the other gender. You guys are repeating the same point over and over again. And I don't have to repeat my point because I already made it. Sincerity, my dear opponents. When you come to learning, you have to be sincere. You see, my dear audience and respected judges, my opponents are trying to say that me, my team, all the students over here, every single student in every single sex school don't know how to communicate, don't know how to socialize, don't know how to be a team. What nonsense. We need to understand that when we go to a single sex school, we become more prepared to face life. That's why when life threatens us, we don't say, why me? We say, try me. Thank you.
Thank you. Next is the turn of the fourth speaker of Kalani House. Let me call upon the fourth speaker of the opposing team, Inshira Imtiaz.
Today, the loudly spoken subject by our opponents was it is only single-sex schools that produce good results, as if the co-ed schools produce broomsticks. Now tell me, my dear opponents, the top results producing schools in Riyadh, American school, British school, Minaret school, multinational school, Middle East international, Bangladesh school, and our very own Sri Lankan international school is co-ed. Didn't we produce the world top ranking in Excel examinations? Didn't we produce 4 A stars and 10 A stars? Our opponents kept on mentioning about academics, results and achievements. But I wonder what will the answer be when asked in a job interview. How comfortable are you to work with the opposite gender? I'm sure you would say, oh sorry sir, I come from a single-sex school. I do not know how to mingle with the opposite gender. Okay, now even for this, you go for seminars. My opponents mentioned about our school being a single-sex school. My dear lovely oppositions, sorry to break out the news to you once again, but our school, this very Sri Lankan international school, is a co-ed school. Why don't you get this? It just has 2 separate buildings for the girls and boys, but the same registration number. My opponents mentioned about Sri Lanka having single-sex schools being successful. Well, take for example Sri Lanka. During the year 2013, Sri Lanka had a total of 10,012 schools, out of which only 300 were single-sex schools. As you claim that the single-sex schools are the best options, then why on earth do we have an education ministry who is not aware of this fact? So you say that our school is a single-sex school. If our school is a single-sex school, the girls will not be having a physics teacher, whereas the boys will. However, this is not the case here. As we are a co-ed school, we have male sir for both the sections. My opponents also mentioned about the CEO of Odell being wildly successful. Oh, I'm sorry, my dear opponents, but isn't Microsoft highly successful than Odell? Well, let me tell you that Bill Gates studied in a co-ed school and not a single-sex school. As Aristotle said, humans are social animals. Today, that means living in a co-ed world. Single-sex schools artificially shelter their students from this kind of reality. Therefore, it is beyond words that the only way to success is to attend co-ed schools and not single-sex schools. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Next, we move on to the summing up session, in which each leader will be speaking for 2 minutes. We start this session with the opposing team. The leader of the opposing team will address at this occasion. Let me call upon the leader of Kalani House, Sarah Kamil.
Education is not the contents of books, but a preparation for life. Do you really believe that single-sex schools can prepare you to face your life? Let us face the facts. There is almost no reason why single-sex schools are or can be more effective than mixed schools. For example, an opponent of mine mentioned that in a co-ed school, boys may dominate leadership. Well, my dear opponents, in case you haven't realized, I am the leader of the Kelani debate team and I have boys working under me. Also, my opponents, before you embarrass yourself, let me tell you something. Yes, our school is a co-ed school. I study with the grade 12 commerce boys and you will soon study with the grade 11 science girls. Studying together in one classroom is what is known as co-education. An opponent of mine also mentioned that in co-ed schools there is no equality, especially in sports. Yes, boys and girls may have separate sports in co-ed schools, but look at the Olympics. They have separate sports for men and women there too. Men and women do not compete directly. Are you trying to say that the Olympics do have an equality as well? Our opponents gave up examples of several famous people, such as Winston Churchill, Theresa May, etc. Out of 7.6 billion people on the face of this earth, do you really want to be satisfied with 25 people being successful from single-sex schools? Because I can bring out more than 1 million examples of people who have been successful but come from co-ed schools. Our opponents also mentioned that there is no freedom in a co-ed school. What kind of freedom do you want? Even in a single-sex classroom, you only have 6 hours in the given school time. Do you want to sing and dance inside the class? This is not what you come to school for. Education is the foundation of progress in every family and in every society. How is our society supposed to progress and change when our children, the future leaders of the society, have no contact or concept of the opposite gender? How is our society supposed to function when one half of the population is too afraid to even speak to the other half? And so, it should be obvious to all of us by now that the best and most effective way of producing better people and a better future is through co-education. Thank you.
Thank you. Finally, to sum up, let me call upon the leader of Wallaby House, Naveed Riyadh.
In the real scenario, fire and cotton, do they go together? No, and my opponents today have gone completely against it. They stated that co-ed schools make students prepared for the society. Do you know that co-ed schools perpetuate stereotypes of girls as being good in creative arts and boys are strong in maths? In single-sex schools, teachers can address the unique needs and interests of students, making them strong in areas where they're actually weak. And that purely makes them prepared for society, not these co-ed schools. And one of my opponents mentioned that there's a strong bond between both the genders. In the United States, there are more co-ed schools than any other continent. You take Asia, Middle East, or the Europe. And guess what? The highest divorce rate is in the US. I don't see the bond. And my opponent also have officially changed the definition of co-ed school, saying that since boys and girls are here together, it is not a single-sex school. I mean, boys are sitting on the right, girls on the left. That has been completely segregated. And do you want to keep 2 language days, 1 language day for the boys and for the girls? No, this is what we call effectiveness. And my opponents mentioned that co-ed schools prepare you to live in the world. Do you know when you're alone, you tend to make more mature decisions, and even in future when it comes to marriage, you will make a wise decision. Albert Einstein, for example, he always wanted to study alone, irrespective of whether the opposite gender was there. He never cared. I mean, have you all ever seen the way he looks? And today, he is recognized as being a theoretical physicist, and that was his renowned future. My treasured opponents, you are talking about co-education all this time in the presence of our judges today. Okay, fine. Now tell me this. Have you all experienced co-ed school? No. No. My fellow friends, no. Definitely no. Are we experiencing a single-sex school? Yes. Yes. My fellow friends, yes. Definitely and obviously, yes. And I'm here talking in front of you all today because of the benefits I got from single-sex school. And aren't we ready to walk out of this school and face society today? That's a big yes. In capital letters, font size 72, bold, underline. Thank you.
So that brings this debating competition to an end. The results will be announced later. I thank all the debaters of both houses and the judges and the wonderful audience for your support.